can see it's cold out there, Mr. De Villiers.
I'm sure you cold, Mr. Holderness, because I see you still on campus. You love that place so much, you can't leave, eh?
Yeah. Okay, I think that's it.
I think we can go.
Seems to be
all right. Okay, the latecomers must just catch up with us. We are recording this, so if anything sensible comes from this, we will make it available again. So good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for taking the time. I'm realizing that this might be the time that some people have supper, but it is also a time when families are most likely to be home. So thank you for inviting us into your homes. Hope you are all cozy and safe and happy wherever you are. So the protocols and policy that we have developed and that we shared on the webinar the other night was obviously dominated by the fact that we are a boarding school by and large, and our boarding scale of our boarding is really something that's a massive factor in this whole consideration. It's much more than opening just a school. So we had to focus mostly on that, and it might have felt that we are not addressing the Daygirl needs properly, and we always had this idea that we would meet with Daygirls and their families so that we can really thrash it out what this means. So I'm going to start very generally. I like to sort of paint the big picture first by saying that the school will open as a day school for Daygirls because that is what we have to do. And the government have given us a go-ahead and actually also instructed all schools to open. So it's not an option to not do school for you. And we want to offer you an experience that is really worth your while, where you can learn a lot. We want to try and offer you more than you have at the moment. We are thrilled that the online program is working well. And although it's sometimes really demanding on people, I think it is serving us well, and teachers are working extremely hard to make that happen. But there is a huge amount of added value possible when we can access campus. And that is our challenge, to give you access to campus, everybody, in a way that is safe for you and maximizes the offer that we can bring. Firstly, in the academic sphere, but it's not only about academics. School is about much more than that. So we know that we also want you to bring you together again. We want to offer you extramural program that is as close to what we want it to be as possible, and sport and everything else. But we are limited, and we must realize that we are in a situation here where we have to first think safety and health, because that's just a sensible thing to do. But we are also under obligation of the legislation that's being put in place by government. So a lot of what we are doing was governed and by what is expected of us to do as an institution. So we have to check all those boxes. So the first main point is that we really want to put out a program that starts very conservatively, where we protect the Daygirls' health. Because the one luxury that you girls have as Daygirls who are in Grahamstown in this area is that you are healthy and you are not in a hot spot at the moment. So we are quite confident to say that the Daygirls at this point in time will probably look at the school and say, well, you want to bring in another 400 girls onto the campus and expose them to us, or expose us to them. So the thing cuts both ways, and we need to protect you. So that's the first very, very important thing. So the first few weeks are very important, and how we start is very important. And we say it again and again that we want to start tight and safe, and we want to relax as we manage, or as we monitor the risk that we have. But it might be a longer time. We just don't know how long it is. So we need to all understand what the situation is going to be like, what we have to, or how we have to behave, and be able to maintain that for as long as it's necessary. So in the beginning, it's going to be very, very different, but we know why we are doing it. We are very, very concerned about the integration of day girls and boarders. And what I mean by that is we are always concerned about that. It's a very high priority for us as a school that day girls should be integrated with the rest of the school as far as possible and as well as possible. We don't want to read our school community as day girls and versus boarders, or day girls and boarders separately. And many of you will know how difficult it is sometimes for us to structure our school so that day girls really are part of the program and are really well integrated, because we've got such a large boarding contingent. So that is still a very high priority for us. And when we looked at how we should structure day girls schooling, that was very, very important to us to try and achieve that. And of course, the higher the risk and the more conservative we are with our health protocol, the more difficult it is to achieve that integration between day girls and boarders. So I'm saying this up front because I want to ask you to please not be too focused on that, and to know that is a priority for us. It's not that we've just forgotten about that. So I'm going to just share a few sort of daily realities that are going to become part of our life and of day girls' lives and boarders, actually, that you just have to visualize, and maybe that will answer some of the questions that you have. So the first thing is that we will do daily screening. And that screening happens when you arrive at school, and there's going to be a very simple routine, but it's a strict routine that just can't be skipped, where you get screened. There are certain questions that you have to answer, your temperature gets taken, and you get one of these. Here's mine. See here, my sticker here. This means that I was screened today, and then I'm good to go for the day. Boarders will be screened more than once a day, but there's no one who can access our campus before they are screened. So that will be your first hoop you have to jump every day. Then the second, this is maybe the big news, is that we will have to then create a space, because the first principle is that we are not able to give day girls access to boarding houses. And that's maybe been the big question that you've come to this meeting with. But at this stage, with our model that we have and the conservative approach that we're going to have in the beginning, day girls will not be able to access boarding facilities, because we are going to create grade bubbles in the boarding houses. And the idea with those grade bubbles is that that they become almost like a closer family, which allows them to be closer associated with each other. So the whole way they live with each other is a little bit more like a family. And we can't initially allow day girls into that bubble. So we need to. So that poses a problem for us, where we need to give day girls a base for the day, where they can put down their kit, where they can store the equipment that they might need later on for sport, where there are ablutions for them, changing facilities, where they can have tea and meals, or eat at least, and have a base which is safe and secure. So a place where you can leave belongings and so on. So for that, we are going to rig the hall, the school hall. So in the school hall, you will have your space with a locker or a cupboard where you can put your stuff in, and it will be secured there. There will be security the whole day there, and that's a safe space from which you can operate. You will only be able to join boarders in class and on the sports field and with extramurals. And here it's quite important, and I want Mrs. Jarvis to unmute so long so that she can chip in here. But here it's quite important to understand how the interaction is going to be different in boarding houses and outside of boarding houses. So on campus, where day girls and boarders are going to be together in their classroom block, for instance, or on the hockey field, or maybe in a club situation or whatever, we will have to keep social distancing with the sort of protocols out there with that has to be in place for between any two people in society. In the boarding situation, we can have close contacts, and there's a difference between close contacts and other contacts. So when you come across your friends, your peers in the classroom, they are not close contacts of yours, they are other contacts. So they and you with each other and your teacher and anyone else you're interacting with during the day will be like my word, this is my word, an other contact. So if I come across you on campus, I can't come within a certain distance from you, and Mrs. Jarvis will give us those exact measures, because I'm an other contact. I'm not a close contact of you. So can we just maybe deal with that first, Mrs. Jarvis?
All right. Yeah, thank you. And hi, girls.
Okay, there's a freeze, so I'll speak while she.
Parents out there, and I mean, yeah.
You good to go?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. So, sorry, I don't know where you lost me or if you heard me at all starting.
No, you can start again.
Okay. So I just wanted to say good evening to girls and to parents, and just to say that this really trying to get our heads around this model and how it works, and everybody, the safety and everybody integrated and having their space has really been a very difficult challenge. And we are consulting widely, and we are so incredibly lucky to have a panel of medical doctors, not only in Grahamstown, they're also based in Cape Town and Joburg. So everything that we're doing is not us just making this up on our own, and really just looking at the ways that we can keep everybody safe and integrated in the best way possible on campus. And so originally, when we wanted to put our model together, obviously we wanted the boarders and the day girls together. But the more you look at it, the more you see that it is difficult, especially in the beginning, because our only defense, doesn't matter what else we do, our only defense against COVID-19 at the moment is physical distance 5 meters away from each other. The strict hygiene, so hand washing and hygiene and cleaning and sanitizing. And then, of course, the additional thing, and that's not worldwide, but in South Africa, the face masks. And the face mask is not protecting you from getting COVID-19, it's protecting you from spreading it to somebody else and somebody else spreading it to you. So just one other line of defense that we are trying to bring in. And so when day girls are coming in and out of the campus, you are having contact with so many other people off campus, and it's exactly the same for us as staff. We're going to have to follow exactly the same rules as you. We can't be close contacts with the boarders either, including people like the house mistresses and that in the house. So when we are engaging with any girl, be it a day girl or be it a boarder, we are going to follow exactly the same strict protocols, keeping our distance of 1.5 meters from girls, cleaning and sanitizing, wiping down our own spaces, and checking that the spaces that we're bringing you into and engaging with you are also cleaned and sanitized at the same time. And then as we go and we see how things progress, depending on what happens in the country, depending on what happens in Grahamstown, and depending on what happens at the school, we will continually be re-evaluating this and seeing how we can integrate and either loosen our bubbles, which is what we're hoping to do, or maintain them, or we might even have to tighten up. We are not sure because we are dealing with the unknown at the moment. So we've got a very dynamic model. Thing that we can do to keep you safe on our campus is make sure that we keep those strict distances and strict cleaning and sanitization to protect you when you're on our campus.
Okay, thank you very much. So in that sense, we want to ask you that you, from now, be very conservative about your exposure that you have. And you, in the webinar that we've asked boarders who are returning from the 8th of June, and then after that on dates that will be confirmed, that we want to ask boarders that they could arrive on campus with giving us the assurance that in the 2 weeks before they arrive, they have really been very conservative about the exposure and just being with family. And that is what we're actually asking you to try and achieve all the time from now on. So as the term goes on, because you are going to go on and off campus, and to try and really limit your movements, and you're thinking about going to the shops and where you are going to be mindful all the time that the more relaxed you are with your exposure, the higher the risk is theoretically. And that will be your responsibility, because again, we can't check that. This whole thing is a huge exercise in trust, which when we get through this and we look back and we can say we've achieved it, will be a wonderfully rewarding thing to be looking back onto. So I'm just going to mention a couple of practical things, and then I can maybe ask Mr. Holderness after that to talk us through their sort of typical day, or give us a bit of a bird's eye view. But in principle, you will arrive at school, you will have your base or your spot at the hall, and then you will get on with your day. Now, the day will consist out of some lessons that will be online, and for those lessons you don't have to be on campus. Those lessons start from 9 o'clock in the morning, and they continue until I think 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock will be after tea, and that's when the first in-person sessions will start. We call those tutorial sessions, where you will be able to be in a classroom with your teacher, with only girls, in a small group, and that's the real added value to the online program. So the one thing that's missing with our online program at the moment is that we don't have direct access to our teachers. So it becomes very difficult if you want one-on-one time with someone to explain something to you in a bit more detail, or if you want to work with peers and want to ask them how to do certain things and focus on a specific topic or whatever. So the on-campus timetable will have those tutorials in the middle of the day that you can go to, and where you will be in class with the girls of your online class, really, who are on campus. So it's only, obviously you have to be on campus for that. And I think it's going to be quite a powerful moment, because you will be in small groups. So for that you have to be on campus, and those are compulsory. So you can't make those optional, really. We want you there. So the boarders who are on campus will go to those tutorials. There's a slot for them every day. So technically you could arrive at school for those lessons, attend those lessons, and go home again. So that's one option. Or you can stay for the entire day, right until the end of the day, when you finished your last sports practice, like you always have done. The difference is that we now have different boundaries. So the boarding house is not a base for you anymore, but you've got the space in the hall. And in between, say for instance your tutorials and the rest of your day, you could base yourself in your classroom blocks that's dedicated to your grade. So grade 10 will have a specific block of classrooms, and that's where you can go and work through the day to get your work done. So if you want to spend the day at school. And then from there, go onto your extra meals in the afternoon. And then we need you to be off campus, not really off campus, but we need you to vacate the Daigle, let's call it the Daigle base, the hall, by 4 o'clock, because 4 o'clock gives us an hour for the workers on our campus to come in and clean and sanitize that space. But you may go from there to your final hockey practice, or your whatever you still have on in the evening, and finish that, and then go directly from there home. But we won't have that base available after 4 o'clock for those reasons. And this is all in the beginning. Mr. Holderness, do you want to add anything at this stage?
No, not really, Mr. de Villiers, but I think if people have got questions around sport and that type of thing, they can ask. I suppose, let me just address that. The sport initially will be there'll be 3 sort of half-hour sessions in the afternoons between 3 and 5 across each day, and they're going to be short and sharp, and those would be things like, if you're looking at hockey, it would be hockey skills, where you're going to have social distancing. It's not going to be, there are no fixtures, there's not 7-a-side stuff. It's really just an opportunity for you to work on skills and that type of thing. So initially it'll be very, very, very strict, and facilities will have to be, will be looked at very carefully, and there'll be certain times and certain rules around certain facilities. But those we can put out in a document. Those are not finalized yet, but they're pretty close to being there. I suppose at this stage the pool's still going to remain closed, and the gym is going to remain closed. Just on of course we can't, with those we have to wait for certain levels and risk to drop.
Okay, thank you. So I think hold your horses about the daily program and where you're going to be based, and what your movements will make possible. So onto the campus, there are going to be traffic flows that happens, and they are going to be governed mainly by the borders and the boarding house for a specific grade, and the classroom block dedicated to that grade. So it's almost like if you are in grade 10, you're going to be in a small grade 10 school on campus with a dedicated block and a boarding house. And so you will be able to move in that space into the classroom block, and there you will encounter boarders, and you don't have to run away from them. You can interact with them, but you will just have to social distance with them as if you are meeting them in the mall, for instance, where there's a certain distance that you need to keep. So it won't be a completely horrible situation, but hugging and those sorts of things which have gone out of fashion in March already is still in place. Then we need to talk about another sort of practical issue, is that one of the logistical exercises that we have on hand is to move what girls left behind in boarding houses across to the boarding house where they're going to be in. So Mr. Holderness and the house directors are working on a whole routine where we're going to pack up girls' stuff and carry that over in boxes that will be marked to the boarding house where they will be. So if you were in say, for instance, crew house, and now another house is your grade house, then we will need to move your stuff that you left behind there. So that's going to be a bit of an exercise. But we know that in those houses there are also stuff that day girls left behind, and we want to give you an opportunity to go and fetch your stuff there. So we will talk to house directors tomorrow, and we will let them arrange that with you, for each house, so that you can come onto campus maybe early next week, Monday and Tuesday, and come and fetch your stuff. But the house directors will tell you when you can come. If you have stuff there that you would like to get out and take home with you, that's in the boarding house. The screening that you will have to go through every day when you arrive, including me, the same for all of us, will be done in the foyer of the hall. So you will arrive, go through the boom gates, and then there will be very clear indications of where you have to go. You will eventually get to the foyer. There will be someone there who will ask you 4 or 5 questions about your symptoms and your exposure in the last 24 hours. They will take a temperature, and they will tick you off in the book and give you a sticker, and then you're good to go for the day. If you fail that screening, then you will have to go home. So if you present a temperature beyond a certain level, or anything which the nurse says to you, sorry, you don't comply with the screening regulations, then you just return home. And it might be that you just have the sniffles on the day or whatever. We're not going to get panicky about anything, but we need to be considerate about that. An issue that's come up in the other meeting was the issue around uniform, and this is actually presenting to be quite a headache for us, because we want to be practical. So at this stage, we're not going to lay down the law and tell you this is going to be the rule for uniform. You're going to have to wear uniform, not uniform, or whatever. But what I can say to you is that the uniform requirement will be based on what is practical, and what is safe, and what works best for you. Because we know that we have got a different world that we live in now. We want to make sure with day girls that you look tidy and neat when you travel to school and back, because that's just important for us. But we're not going to be draconic about uniform. We're going to be practical about that. So I'm not going to give you hard and fast rules about that, because we are still not completely where we want to be. But what we know is that what we have to our disposal in terms of uniform, or let's rather call it school clothes that you could wear, is your options. Is what you've got in your cupboard at the moment: your uniform, your tracksuit, and your civvies. So that's the sort of we look at that whole wardrobe, and we're going to give you advise you on what we suggest that you wear, because we have to take a lot of things into consideration. We don't want to create a mountain of laundry for your parents. We want to make sure that we comply with what is suggested to us to be safe, and we want to be mindful that it's winter and that it's cold, and we're also mindful that we're not doing school in the normal way. You're just coming in for 2 lessons a day, and that the boarders are actually at home. So to put boarders in uniform for the whole day might not be the best strategy. So please trust us on that, on the call that we'll make there, and we're going to try and be very mindful and fair there. Then there was, I've got here a note that talks about the process of quarantine. Is there something I need to mention there, Mrs. Jarvis, or is it not really relevant at this point?
No, I think it is relevant. I think Ms. Jarvis can answer that question, though. I think it's just really around what happens if a girl feels sick during the day.
Unmute her. There you go.
Sorry, okay. Thanks. I was just trying to get unmuted. So obviously, yes, this is really important. Our first thing that we're really going to ask is, if in any way you are not feeling well on the day, there are no gold stars and there are no awards for full attendance. That went out the window. So it's not a competition to see who's at school the most. We only want to be at school if we are healthy. And what is so fantastic about the model is that we've still got the online learning system going as the main backbone. So if you are a bit snotty or full of allergies or not feeling so well and you stay at home, for the first time in your schooling career, nobody's going to be shouting at you and trying to follow up and see why you are not on campus. So you would just sign into your online classes. That would be your register for the day, and you don't have to be on campus. Nobody's going to shout at you or want to punish you for that. So if you feel ill in any way, we are asking you to stay at home. If you come to school, obviously when they ask you the questions, and you'll very quickly get to know the questions, if you're feeling any of those symptoms, you don't want to arrive at school, because we are going to send you home. But also when we send you home, there's going to be protocols around that. It's not just you go home and then tomorrow you can come back. And so we've got to be wise about that. And like Mr. de Villiers said a little earlier, at the first lot of snotty noses or allergies or sinusitis, we're not going to all panic and send you rushing off for testing and that. It's not easy to be tested at the moment. There are not enough tests available, so we want to really be wise. And so if you arrive there and in any way there's concern around your screening, the information will be fed to the STAN sisters, and they will advise. So if it is not COVID related in any way, we may say to you, look, take 2 or 3 days off school, and if you're feeling well, come back again. But if any red flags go up around potential, this is around you looking after us and us looking after you, and we have to follow the health regulations. So anybody that is potentially infected has to then either, what we would ask the day girls, we'll send you home and we will say you have to consult with your medical doctor, and you don't have to go and get tested. If you don't go and get tested, basically what has to happen is you have to then self-isolate from the first day of your symptoms for 14 days. And if you are showing no symptoms and that after the 14 days, you would be allowed to return to school. We wouldn't be expecting any tests or anything like that. However, if you are showing the symptoms and you want to come back to school earlier, you would have to consult with your medical doctor, and you would have to get a letter to say that he or she is in no ways concerned. And if they are concerned, they would send you for testing anyway, and then the protocol would kick in place. Even if you tested positive, you would have to self-isolate for the 14 days, even if you are not feeling sick. If you test negative and everything is fine, obviously you can come straight back to campus again. One other thing that I wanted to say is what we are aware of is that girls might come onto campus, pass the screening and feel absolutely fine, but as the day progresses, they might start to feel ill. And so what we would do, and it will all be communicated to you, there will be an isolation room. So the SAN is out of bounds for everybody, including the boarders, including the staff, support staff. Nobody can go to the SAN without an appointment. We have to protect our SAN, and so all the right protocols are in place. So if you feel sick, you can't just take yourself off to the SAN to see a SAN sister. You would have to follow the DAYGIRL protocol, which would go to a special room where somebody would check you out, phone your parents, and you would either go home immediately from them. If they can pick you up straight away, that's great. But if they can't, say you've traveled in from a farm or from Port Alfred or something, we're not going to just leave you sitting in the school hall feeling terrible. We will keep you in a place where a nursing sister will keep an eye on you until your parents can come and fetch you and take it from there. So there will be an isolation or waiting room for girls that are not feeling well during the day, waiting for their parents to come and fetch them.
Okay, Mr. de Villiers, a really good question here. Just thanks, Mr. Jarvis. A good question here is around the masks. What are the regulations on wearing masks on campus?
I'm going to throw that to Mrs. Jarvis again, if you don't mind, ma'am.
Okay, so girls, I don't know if there's been some confusion in that around masks. Again, we're not being sticky or anything. This is not about making money or doing anything like that. Many of you have already bought masks. And if you've got your own masks, then you're going to wear those to school. We do have some DSG masks and more masks available because we are aware that boarders might not have enough when they come back, or some might go missing and things like that. So there are masks available, and if you'd like to, I don't know if Mr. de Villiers has got his one at the moment, but there actually have been printed some lovely DSG ones, those ones where we had the competition for the logo and that. So they are available. But the bottom line is that in any public spaces, like it is out in the rest of the country, if you are in public, you have to wear your mask on campus. So you would wear it in the classroom, in the tutorial, wherever you are in touch with other people. So for day girls, that's actually a large period. And so part of it might be that you might do 1 or 2 online lessons at home, because then you wouldn't have to have your mask on. But if you are at school and in the classroom, even if you're doing an online lesson, you would have to have that mask on.
How about this? This is it.
Okay, then there's another question around lunch and tea times. I can answer that in some form. Initially, and I'll explain like this, tea time, we were going to get the kitchen to create teas in the day girl space. But for the first 2 weeks, lunch is not going to be an option for day girls. And that is really based around the fact that that's within the dining hall. There will be spaces set up at the hall for day girls to bring their own lunch initially. And we bring in, the reason is we bring in a whole lot of people to board from all over the country. And when you're eating, you have to take off your face mask, and obviously that's a risk. So we really don't want your boarding community are there to infect you in any way in that space. And chatting to the doctors, they feel that is quite a high risk area. So for the first 2-3 weeks, we'll review it after that, but we are going to keep it very, very tight when we start out. I don't know if there are any questions on there. There's another question here, Mr. de Villiers. Can visors be worn rather than masks?
Jane, I know you've got information about that.
Yeah. So visors and that the research is not showing that they are any better than the masks and things like that. So some people like them. you need to be careful looking through those, all day. They can also make your eyes on that funny. But where they are worried about the visors is you coughing and that and getting stuff. You can wear your visor, but before you move to another space, you are meant to clean that and sanitize that. Otherwise, you can carry any of the COVID virus with you from the one area into another. So they can be used in a classroom and that, but before you move from the classroom somewhere else, they have to be cleaned and sanitized.
Okay.
It's a good question. Wearing of masks during exercise has proved lethal on occasion. How will sport and masks go hand in hand? Beth, I think that's a very good question that we can take to the doctors as well, just to get their feedback on that. I can't answer you 100% now, but I will definitely get that feedback from the doctors.
Yeah, I think on the sport, the luxury we've got with sport, of course, is that we are outside, so the ventilation is not an issue, and we have space, so we will be able to create much more space than you would normally have indoors, which will make it possible for us to take masks off. But again, we are being advised on that. But personally, I don't visualize you on a sports field or a tennis court or something with a mask on. I'm going to share this something on the screen quickly with you, and Dr. Gens, if you can get unmuted so long while I'm doing that, because I realize it's very helpful for you to get a snapshot of what the timetable might look like for the day. It was quite useful last night with the matrics when we spoke to them. I'm going to share that. And let's just talk through that, because it will help you maybe to visualize what your day might look like and how you might maybe want to structure your day coming in and out. Just give me one sec. Okay, that's just a cropped version of the proposed timetable at this stage. Dr. Gens, would you like to chat to us about that?
Yes, thank you, and good evening to everybody, parents, girls. Looking forward to having you back, hopefully soon. This is a draft timetable. It hasn't been finalized, but we're keeping the 3 for a 9 o'clock start, 2 lessons, and then we want to intersperse it with some activity, something where you're not staying for 5-6 hours at a time, and that's the tutorial session, which will take place from 11 to 1. Roughly, and then an afternoon lesson. So currently what is period 2 on your timetable will become period 1, and period 3 will become period 2, and period 4 will become period 3. So we're not changing the actual backbone of the learning, and those extra couple of lessons we're working away into the timetable. There's an opportunity to go for runs in the mornings before your online lessons, cultural activities in the afternoon, possibly even a music lesson in the morning before school, if you can't find another time. And then we are looking at staggered meals for the boarders, and we'll probably lengthen the tea period as well. We're still finalizing this, and we're looking at changing the tutor and assembly and chapel periods around a little bit, just to accommodate where it's best for everybody. We don't want to interfere with online, for the online people at home, late into the evenings, nor do we want to make that early in the mornings where teenagers would like to sleep. So that is kind of what we were thinking. We're about to finalize, I think, in the next couple of days, and then we'll produce that timetable for you. In the tutorial 1, you'll see, say, for example, your English teacher, and in tutorial 2, you'll see your history teacher. So you'll have 2 tutorials each day in addition to your online lessons, which there are 3 of them. So it's not like you have to learn anything extra. The tutorial time is for you to really get to grips with the material, ask the questions that you need, do the practical work that you need to maybe do, spend some time with your teacher discussing an oral or planning something. So that is what it will be. Let me just read this question because it will relate to me, I think. Yes. Will online learning still be available if a day girl is not able to attend school, including the tutorial sessions? That's a good question. The tutorial sessions will be focused mainly on the children that are in the classroom, but you are welcome to Zoom in on those sessions if you are not able to make them. And then you can say, put up your hand and ask a question as well, or engage with the class discussion that's happening. So we will make that available to you to be online, but it's not the focus of the tutorial. The tutorial is hopefully the focus of the children that are actually in the but to Zoom in if that's if you need to do, if you can't make it. So those day girls that aren't able to come in can do that. A quick look here. Okay, academics. So that you're going to be doing what you do online anyway. That's the big question. Well, currently you won't have access to your teacher, so that's the main thing. You can make access, have access to your teacher. Sometimes they'll even be in on the online lessons, if that's what you used to do. But they'll definitely be there for the tutorials, and you'll definitely be able to engage with your peers in your year group in the afternoons for sport and actually do your cultural activities. So it is worthwhile, and as a girl, I would highly recommend that you do actually come to school, given that you are currently safe, and we do there. The more bodies we have at school, the better. The more the chias will happen, and the more parties, and the parties will be different. They'll be socially distanced, but they'll still be cool. All right. So,
girls, it helped me to understand the difference between the tutorial sessions and the online sessions by thinking from the perspective of the teacher. So if you look from the teacher's angle, and where their focus will be in the online lesson, their focus will be on those people who are on the screen in front of them. So just like you are having at the moment, and that is going to be the backbone of delivering the curriculum, as it were. So that's a lesson a teacher prepares for, and he or she decides, this is what I want to teach today, and that's being delivered in that lesson. So if I'm a teacher, I'm preparing my lessons, my online lessons, and I'm delivering it, and you need to then take that, and then there might be a discussion. With a tutorial, the teacher's focus is going to be on the needs of the children who sit in front of her or him in that class. So those who are zooming into the tutorials are not the focus of so the teacher cannot engage with the children in front of her with the people on Zoom as a priority. So if it happens in that tutorial that the group in front of the teacher says, ma'am, we want to deal with this topic today, and we want you to please help us because in yesterday's online lesson it wasn't really clear to us, then the teacher will focus only on that. And the Zoom people, if we zoom in, can't change now the direction of that lesson because the priority is for those who are in class. And that's the value proposition of this model, for you to come to the tutorial so that you can get that one-on-one, which we don't really have time for normally in school, but which makes a huge difference in one's academic and mastering your academics.
Mr. de Villiers had also that in those two, what you
sorry, Dr. Gens, you are disappearing every few seconds.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yes, I don't think it's necessarily a sound issue, but carry on.
Okay. Tutorial sessions, it doesn't matter whether you have a college teacher or a DSG teacher, they will be coming to you. So you will have contact with your teacher regardless of whether your teacher teaches at college or DSG. But your online lessons, especially if they are college teachers, but they also may come across every now and then to deliver that to you by arrangement as well. So the tutorial sessions, you will see your teacher. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Jevons has alerted us to Sue Smales, has her hand up.
It's a question from Sue. Let me just unmute you, Sue.
Here you go, Sue.
Very good.
Yeah, I've put it in writing as well, is that both Ian and I work, and we're not going to be able to go backwards and forwards fetching Jess, so she'll have to walk into school. There's only a 15-minute gap between the lesson finishing online and the tutorial one starting. How do we navigate that?
Sue, I think the easiest way to understand that is that the school day starts at 9 o'clock. So she will have a space that she will be able to work on. So one way to solve it is to come to school in the morning and do the first online lessons at school, and then go into the tutorials and then go home after that.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Jarvis's hand is up. Sorry, it just takes a few seconds to find someone and unmute you.
Can you hear me now? So just Dr. Gens was also looking, and I know when we're talking to college, we're realizing that it's a very short gap between that second lesson and the tutorial. And so that's just a proposed calendar. It is looking like we will make that tea break a bit longer. So for those girls who want to do their online lessons at home and then come in for the tutorials, I think for our day girls, having a slightly larger gap there might help you with logistics or walking into school. So we will definitely look at that for you.
Yeah, the issue came up in the HOD meeting today, so we are aware of it.
And also, I see some of the girls asking, it is definitely not compulsory to come in and onto the campus for your online lessons. You are absolutely welcome to stay at home and do them there if it is more comfortable. There's actually nothing that is compulsory here at the moment, and that's what you need to understand. It has to fit with your levels of comfort. You have to assess the model that we're offering you and the risk that you feel that it poses to you, and then make individual decisions as to what feels comfortable. And your decisions may change from day to day or over a couple of weeks. So there is absolutely nothing that is compulsory, not even the tutorials. We're putting them there for you to get extra. But if it doesn't feel comfortable for you, you're not going to be in trouble if you don't pitch to anything. We're going to encourage you, and we would love you to be there. But it has to feel comfortable for you.
There's another question that's come up, and I can link the two, I suppose. The one is around socializing with peers. Are we allowed to socialize with the boarders outside of class and sports grounds? Of course, I think you can. Of course, that is very important. That's why we bring you back to school. But it's about, like we have to keep some areas quite sacred. So your boarding house, the boarding house itself is going to be closed off. But you can obviously talk to your mates in your grade. You keep social distancing and that type, and the regular rules that apply to that. The other issue is around the hall. Just how many people are going to be in the hall, and that's been asked a few times. Is there enough space there? We will have to manage that quite carefully. But initially, that space will be for day girls only, and it'll be set up in a way where we've got lockers in certain spaces, and and within that hall there will be social distancing that has to be applied, and you'll have to probably wear a face mask in that space. It's really a space to store your stuff, to have a go-to place to put your things initially. Obviously, this is for the first 2 weeks. This is the initial kind of very high level risk 5 type of assumption we're taking, and we will obviously revisit those rules going forward. But at this stage, we're just going to be as strict as we can around those spaces.
There are a couple of people who've been.
And Mr. Holden is.
Yes, Jane?
So also in that hall, we'll be putting tables and benches where girls will be able to sit and eat, and also some working tables, so that you've got space to work there. But if you don't want to, you would be able to go into your classrooms. But just remember, in terms of socializing, you can only socialize and be in the classrooms that are part of your bubble. And you have to be aware that different bubbles are moving at different spaces. So it's not that you can just go and sit on the benches under the mirror. Once you're on campus and you see that flow, you would be able to hang out, but probably the best space is that the boarder stays after the tutorial or after lessons, or comes to class for online lessons and hangs out with you there in the joint space. So that would be the socializing space where you are both allowed to be, and it's not just randomly on campus, you go down to the Astro or somewhere else. All of these spaces are being used by different people at different times, and so we have to follow that flow.
Okay, there's another good question here, Mr. de Villiers, for you. From what date would the day girls be allowed onto campus? I know that the grade 12s are coming back on the 8th. What are our thoughts around that?
Yeah, we would love to make the campus available for day girls from when the matrics come back, or as soon as possible thereafter. So it might be that we are able to give you a date where other grades only of day girls can come back. But we must also remember that at this stage we only have an official go-ahead for grade 12 and grade 7 from the government. So we're anticipating that we will be given a go-ahead. So today in assembly I shared with you the dates where we would like to bring back the other grades, but that is still dependent on an official go-ahead in writing from the DBE, which we haven't got yet. And what we have at this stage is ISASA, the Independent Schools Association, who has given independent schools an indication that it's imminent that we would be able to get that go ahead. But if we don't get it, we aren't allowed to allow other grades back. Once we get that go ahead, then our strategy is to get the rest of the school back, or the rest of the boarders back, as soon as it's logistically and practically possible. So there will be a staggered return of the boarders, but that is really not, it's really not just something that's driven by the academic program, it's driven by our logistics and our reality. So there will be a day or two in between boarders returning once we start, but day girls will be able to come onto campus, and if we're ready to take day girls onto campus safely, we will open that. But initially, until your grade is actually officially starting with their on-campus program, what we can offer you in the interim is just a space to work and to access our online teaching from school. So for those of you who need the Wi-Fi at school, for instance, and that would be the only reason why it would make sense to come to school in that time before the tutorials start. But the tutorials for your grade will not start before the boarders are actually there for your grade.
Mr. de Villiers and Mr. Holderness, there are 3 questions that I've been alerted to. One is from Pamela, one is from Walter Extian, and one from Justin Power. So if we can take those 3 in turn, please. Sandra?
Just need to unmute her. Pamela?
Hi, sir. I was wondering what's going to happen with the rest of the. So you know how all the children are going to go into the hall. How are they going to be integrated as grades? Because surely, if there's like so many people in the hall, then it's not as safe.
Yeah, we are not visualizing a huge number of girls being in the hall. The hall is supposed to be a landing pad, ready so in the morning when you arrive to put your stuff down, and we want you to then get on with your day. So although you might be able to work there, we would like to spread you out as much as possible. So we would not want big numbers of girls in any given space, and wherever we are, we need to keep that distancing. So we're seeing a flow through the hall really, rather than girls sort of congregating there.
Yeah, and you'd be working in your classroom block with us.
And Mr. de Villiers, and girls, you don't even have to go into the hall at all. I mean, if you have not got much stuff with you, you could bring a rucksack and you could just be in your classroom or wherever you feel it's comfortable, away from the others. So you don't have to go into the hall. The hall is just because we do need to give you space if you are bringing some stuff and you don't want to lug it around from classroom to classroom or from classroom to the sports facilities. So you don't have to go into the hall. It is space there, and like Mr. de Villiers said, you come and go and flow through it. And we see you spending quite a lot of time in your classroom block, where you have a number of classrooms allocated, and you could even spread out through those.
Right, I've got two questions. The first one is related to the, there's communication that went out to say that tutorials will be compulsory, but I'm assuming now at this point, that's just only for those who choose to come back into boarding. Because why would a day girl choose to then come to just the tutorials if she's not allowed to stay on for lunch and you don't want them to congregate in the hall? So there's really no reason for a day girl to come into class for just the 2 hours and then have to go back home, because you can't eat lunch, you can't congregate together in the dining hall, in the hall, because there'll be a massive group of kids. The second question is, you want to encourage the kids to socialize, but the day girls won't have an option to. They will only be in class together, and then you can't really congregate in the hall either, so you're effectively going to go home straight away. So I'm asking, what is the benefit really, you know, besides the 2 tutorials for the day girls to come in?
Yeah, I hear you, Walter, and that's a very good question, because that just frames and highlights the reality of our situation. This virus and the risk that it poses to us limits us hugely if we want to do this right. And it's those are the limitations that we've got. So we have to work with that. I look at this model, and one of my wishes is that we would be able to give girls access to boarding, or to the boarding houses, day girls, because that would actually be the best for us from a health point of view and from a socializing point of view. But at the moment, if you look at how what we are obliged to do to keep girls safe, this is what we have to offer, and we hoping that outside of those tutorials, that we will be able to have girls in classes distanced, but still together. There might be 8 or 9 girls in a class who work together for the day, or for an hour or two, and they might do their online lesson together and be with each other, and they will be able to talk to each other, and have a different experience maybe of that lesson, or just socialize. So there will be spaces for that. The difference is just that they won't be able to be close contacts. If you think of the St. Andrews model, for instance, that is what will be the reality for the whole school. They will have to social distance the entire time with those sort of measures in place, and it's that sort of a space. So border girls can come out and be with day girls as long as they keep that distance, and we will have to look at how that pans out. We will also learn what works and what doesn't work, and what's really horrible, and try and tweak things so that we constantly improving our space. It depends on so many variables. The risk factors that we are monitoring the whole time, the number of girls at any given time on the campus, all those things will impact on how we advise girls to move around. And our lean will all the time be to create a space that is pleasant and attractive for the girls to be in as well.
I understand.
Sorry, Mr. Eckstein, I wanted to come and say it's no different to all of our reality throughout the whole country. So, in our own homes, we can be closer and relax our guard and all of that. But when any of us, if we want to socialize with our own friends, I mean, we're not meant to be in their homes at the moment. We have to, if we see them, we can't hug them. We've got to keep 1.5 meters away. it's everybody's reality. We are just with our borders trying to create in the boarding house a mimicking of home, because we know that they're not going to be able to socially distance all that time. They are close contacts. And so we know we have to manage that risk if we, and please we pray that we don't, but if we do have a confirmed case, and we would have to manage that properly against all the protocols and that from the health department. But that would be like any of us in our homes. If one of our family members got sick, we would all have a group of young people that have been separated from each other for more than 60 days, desperate to get together, desperate to throw their arms around each other. But for all of us, that's not going to happen for a long time because it's not safe.
No, and I fully understand that. And just so that you don't get me wrong, I'm totally appreciative of the amount of hours that has gone into the planning. But I think I speak for many that the risks involved on a daily basis with staff and maintenance and ancillary staff coming back onto a campus, surely if our screening is sufficient and thorough, then the day girls that pose the same amount of risk than a cleaning staff or myself, a staff member coming on and off of campus. So it seems like if our screening and our social distancing and our sanitizing, if those are the protocols that are going to keep us all safe, then the day girls are at the same amount of risk as a border would be. So I think from that point, I battle to understand why we need to separate if we are screening everyone the same way. But anyway, I don't want to come across as not appreciative of any of the work that's gone into all the protocols. So I will leave it at that.
Okay, but I also think that we just need to say is that we as staff and our cleaning staff and our support staff are following the same rules as the day girls. So we also are socially distancing from the borders. I mean, even the house staff in the house, when they are going to engage with their borders, they have to put their masks on and keep their distance and that from the borders. So our cleaning staff, we're going to be shifting them around so that they're not in the houses at the same time as the staff, so that we can trace close contacts and things like that. So this is not just for the girls. These rules apply to us as staff members and to our support staff coming on as well, because we are all visitors to the campus and we are the ones going off and on. And so we have to also minimize our risk to the people who are living on campus, because that is their home. They can't go away from that. That is home for them.
We had Justin Powers next, and I think that John Rennie would like to pose a question after that, please.
Dr. Gens, thank you. We have had questions answered already, so that deals with us.
Hi, Mr. de Villiers. The question that I ask here is, like, on occasions, like for example today, where it's really rainy and cold in Grahamstown, the girls have got no place to congregate because you don't want them in the hall, and in between lessons they're going to have to sit outside and freeze. I think this is a little bit unfair on the day girls. And furthermore, it seems like the day girls are almost being targeted and it's like a feeling that they are getting like pushed out of the school almost because they are day girls. I think that the whole policy needs to be rethought on this. I'm sorry that I know that a lot of work has gone into this, but I actually don't agree with it.
Thank you. We note your observation, and these are some of the concerns that we have also had. So we will have to go in and have a protocol that can deal with that, with our day girls on campus in bad weather, and know where we will be going with them. And there are, the classroom blocks can hold the entire school. So, on a normal school day, in any day school, children spend time in classrooms during their school day, and that is where they are. So, so my first instinct is that's where students are during the school day, and those are sheltered, and those are actually quite comfortable. So the tutorial lessons, they are expected to be in class in any way, and in the other three lessons, the online lessons, if they prefer to be at school for the entire day, they will be able to be in classes where they would have been. So it's the in-between times where we will have to have accommodation for them, and we then have the additional space of the hall for them. So there shouldn't be a problem for in terms of space, because we quite literally have a school that can accommodate 400 children, and in situations like that where the day girls need to be able to work in a sheltered space, we have only the day girls and all that space to accommodate.
I also think, Mr. de Villiers, people are misunderstanding us. We're not saying they can't go into the hall. I think what we were saying when people were saying, what happens if there's too many girls? We were saying the hall is not their only place. So there's the hall plus all the grade classrooms. But we are going to put chairs and tables and desks and eating space into the hall, and even look at making sure that it's nice and warm and all of that for the girls. So we're trying to make it a space, but if they felt uncomfortable that there were too many people in at one time, we won't know the numbers, because not every day girl is going to want to be on campus every single day for everything or for the whole day. So at one stage you might walk into the hall and there might only be 10 girls, and you can find your space and work comfortably there. But if you are uncomfortable with the number of girls in the hall, and like Mr. de Villiers, there's lots of space for them to separate out and not be on top of each other, or to get together and work with their friends and things like that. We'll keep the borders out of there so that there's enough space for them. But if they're feeling uncomfortable with the number of girls in the hall and they want to distance themselves, they can go and find a quieter classroom in that. But I promise you, we won't be throwing them out of the hall. We're trying to make the hall into a comfortable space for them, because we are aware that this is really difficult and they do need space on our campus.
Yes, I'm not sure if the question was answered about horse riding. I don't know if you...
John is going to, I think, wants to ask you another just a question again. John?
Yeah, just furthermore is that the girls are going to be interacting with the boarders in class on many occasions. So you're separating them when you want them separated, and then you're keeping them together when you want them together. You're going to be exposing them to the boarders and the day scholars anyway. I don't understand the whole plan again.
Yeah, so the difference is that there are spaces where the boarders will be able to behave like close contacts. So there are, and the boarding house is one of those spaces, and the dining hall is one of the other spaces. So if you are a boarder, there are times when you will have to social distance when you come in contact with other contacts, such as your teachers, your friends who are day girls, and so on. And there are times when you will be able to have close contacts in the boarding situation. And that is what we try to achieve for boarders as well, because they come to live at school for 24 hours a day, so that they have an experience of normality as far as is possible for us in those spaces which are possible for them to have those closer contacts. And this is why we have, it seems to be contradicting, but it's not really, because boarders will also step out. Just like we at home at the moment, when we are at home, we have close contact with our family, but when we go to the shop, together, we keep our distance from others that we come across. It doesn't mean that we can't interact with them or engage with them, but the rules of the game just changes slightly. So we have identified areas in the school where we feel that the close contact situation is applicable. And over time, we might be able to relax that. It all is linked to what we regard the risk factors to be. And this is the issue. So in class, a class is viewed as a public space. So that's not a close contact space. So boarders must know that when they step into that, we are keeping our distances as if we are out in public. And those were will be the two spaces. So wherever a boarder finds herself on campus, she will have to say to herself, am I now in a space where close contact is possible or not? And the house and the dining hall for the start of this will be the spaces where we will insist on that.
Mr. David,
yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to double check with everybody. It was about the lunch. Will the school be providing lunch? Because there might be an interest from the day girls to have lunch. Is that something that's on the cards to be delivered to the hall, say, for lunchtime for the girls?
Yes, I would hope that we would be able to do that. So at the moment, we know that maybe in the beginning we won't be able to do that, but if it's practical, then we will certainly try to achieve that, because it would be our pleasure to be able to provide a hot lunch for girls. And so we will definitely engage with our catering people, and if that is possible, we'll do it. And hopefully we will eventually be able to do lunch together in the dining hall. So we will have to be guided by what is sensible and safe for us to do.
Dr. Gens, just to confirm that, Dr. Gens, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm just sorry. I've been plunged into darkness.
No problem. The question is just want some confirmation for day girls that, and we know that the tutorial groups will be compulsory. It allows us the opportunity to get the boarders into their classroom blocks, and then we have to sanitize the boarding houses. Are those tutorial groups going to be compulsory for the day girls? Just want to confirm that.
I did answer that question on the chat privately. The will be for the boarders, and day girls. We can't force you to come in for those tutorials, but if you are on campus, we'd love to have you. And if you find value in them, that is where the value will be. So I'd recommend that you give it a try. If you obviously can't make it, you're welcome to Zoom in if that's what the problem is. But we'd love to. I don't think we can make it, but your parents would to girls, because that is where the value is to have.
I can maybe just say this about this. This is not an issue about compulsory and not compulsory. If you are on campus, you are at school. When the tutorials are on, we do not want to see girls on the campus, hanging around on the campus. That is a school period. It's happening on any given day. So there are 2 lessons in a day where girls who are at school go to their tutorial lessons. Those lessons are not optional. They are optional when you are still at home in the morning and decide whether you're going to do school or not. So the decision for families now, for day families, is whether they are going to return to school or whether they're going to continue with online schooling. And I would strongly recommend that you don't adopt a pick and pay sort of approach where you come the one day and skip the next day, because then you won't get the value out of what we are offering. The value in this is going to be in arriving at school every day, attending your tutorials, and working through your academics and succeeding eventually. So we are set up to set you up for success there. And we're expecting you to come to the classes because teachers will be there, ready to help you, and to help you to really fly through this year and finish it successfully. So most certainly not an expectation of me that you arrive on campus and only do your online lessons on campus and skip the tutorials. Not an option. Those tutorials are compulsory for those who are at school.
Thank you. And Mr. Holderness, did you address the horse riding question? Is that
No.
that
That would be absolutely fine. They could continue with that, yeah, as long as it's on their private basis. Yeah. Absolutely fine.
Okay, let me just check my watch. I see there's 7 minutes before we've been together for an hour. Please put up any hands if there are any further questions.
I think that's an hour and a half, Mr. de Villiers.
It's an hour and a half, sorry. I must have had fun because time has flown.
But just to add to John, I think one of the things just to finish off with is, this is obviously just to remind you, this is the first phase of this, and no one wants to have the separation of day girls and boarders, and we are very, very aware of that. We are going to, obviously, we're going to start off very, very conservatively, and then we'll obviously review as we go along. That's my last comment for the evening.
And can I also make one last comment? Please, can we all remember that this is temporary? We just can't tell you how long temporary is, and that we are evaluating this. I mean, literally on a day-to-day basis, things can actually change. So it is temporary, and please, can you hear from us that this is as much to protect the day girls as it is to protect the boarders, and particularly in the beginning, even more so to protect the day girls, with all these girls coming from around the country. So if we could wave a magic wand and make it ideal, that's what we really would want to do. But we're trying our best in the worst situation. We will keep talking. We will keep listening to everybody. We will keep consulting with the medical experts. But some of the stuff our hands is tied around. So we can't just make a decision for day girls. It has to fit in with a whole big system, plus regulations, plus the whole health protocol. But please know that we've got your best interests, and we will keep reviewing it. And our dream is that we can get you fully integrated again, or back into the spaces with the boarding houses as soon as possible, as soon as safely possible.
Someone asked again about the dates, when the dates will be confirmed for other grades to return. I just want to reiterate that again, that once we get the go ahead, we will go. If it's before the dates that we put out, then it will be the dates that I shared in assembly today, but I'll share it in writing with parents as soon as that's confirmed. But according to that timetable, we will have all our girls back on campus, all grades, by the 16th of June. So we're really crossing fingers that will be possible, and waiting for imminent go ahead from the DVE to do that. Thank you very much. I think we can conclude the meeting. This does not have to be the very last meeting that we get together. We still have a bit of time, so we will take the temperature, hear what more questions we get in, and we will call again if we need to get together again and gather again to iron out a few more things. Then we will do so. We've got the luxury to easily get together like this, and to speak in a more sort of intimate environment, and it's really helpful. So thank you to everybody who's asked questions. There are some real challenges that we are facing, and we are spending every day at school together, almost from dark, from the beginning of the day until dark every day, to try and find the best way forward for you. And your feedback is very valuable to us. So the problems that you are flagging to us, we are taking that as constructive comments and more perspective on a really difficult challenge that we have to solve here. So we're going to try our very best. And I think, it might look, because it's in such stark contrast with what we are used to, it might not look that attractive. But I think when you mix what we've got with girls, and with the energy and their bubbly natures and their fun, and their willingness to just go into this and do it, it's going to actually be, it could be really, really constructive and fantastic. Yeah, schools are going to open. Please come. Let's do this together. Thank you very much.
Bye.